Outnumbered over time. The judge has to leave us quickly after the TV version. Is there any last words you want to give on North Korea?
I hope it doesn't come to war, because the unintended consequences are always bad. We have too many decent civilians, North Korean as well as South Korean, who would lose their lives.
Not to mention American men and women who wear the uniform, who were on the Korean Peninsula, who are in Guam, who are all over that part of the world, whose lives would be in jeopardy.
Amen.
And General Mattis knows that the president must do everything possible to avoid war. It's the absolute last resort.
Judge, thank you.
Oh,
Always a pleasure.
guys.
Now, you're going to take off your microphone and your IFB, the little thingy in his ear that allows him to hear our control room. And you just do whatever you have to do. I have to say that the highlight of the color wheel for me today was the fact that you wore a tie to match my dress.
Well done. Did you
I'm
plan
just saying that.
Do you like the tie as well
I
as the
love
dress?
it.
Right.
I love. What are you talking about? It's got a little turquoise in it.
Judge,
I mean,
you have a
look
very
at that.
strong tie game.
Can we get that? Oh, yeah. See? I mean, when the color wheel comes
Very
together.
festive.
Harris, I'm liking it today.
I'm a very simplistic woman.
But it works
You're gonna
today.
have to come in the picture, Chris, and unwire me.
All right. Let's go to the
Look at
live
this
chat.
handsome devil
Kennedy,
that
will you do
doesn't
me a favor?
Me too.
Can you watch Facebook Live for me?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, Outnumbered FNC, just go to that. The judge is
Bye, Judge.
leaving,
So
and
long,
he's taking
everybody.
his infectious laugh with him.
Bye, Judge.
Thank you,
To freedom, Judge.
There we go.
To freedom.
Freedom and
I love
liberty.
that. All right, so on Facebook Live, if you click on us, you'll see all the little bubbles that people give us. It's so exciting. We have a lot of people watching right now in the live chat. The breaking news that ended our live TV version of us, Katie, was much more dire in its tone, and I've got a little bit of it on my phone. I won't turn to too much of it from General Mattis than what we have heard. I mean, we knew yesterday that the president had issued a firm statement on fire and fury, right? We knew that, and we knew, unlike the world, the likes to the world has never seen before. Those were specific words. They did not seem off the cuff. You have some reporting on that.
Well, and I think if you look at Defense Secretary Mattis's exact words, he's actually putting the ball into North Korea's court and saying, your actions are your consequences. So if you want to continue with this, we have said we don't want regime change. But if you decide that you're going to continue to threaten us, if you decide to threaten Guam, or God forbid, to shoot off a missile that is destined for American civilians or South Korea, the consequence for your actions will be regime change. So it's actually a warning to them.
Oh,
look, we're not there yet,
yeah.
but your actions will have consequences of that if you continue to proceed.
And Katie, what you're talking about were those comments by Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, who's been in the Asia region twice in just the last 10 days or so. And that was back on August 1st to begin the conversation with, we do not seek regime change.
Right.
Today, from Mattis, North Korea should cease any consideration of actions that would lead to the end of its regime.
Right.
That seems pretty crystal clear that we have come some distance, Abby.
You know, it's so interesting to compare rhetoric and comments that are made, like on the campaign trail, to when people get in office and they get in the Situation Room and they're surrounded by the experts and the generals on the issue. And you lay out all the options on the table and you realize there are no good options when it comes to North Korea, because no one wants to go to war, right? That would be a disaster for everyone involved. China doesn't even want to go to war with North Korea. So I think they're sitting back now and they're realizing we don't have a lot of places to go here. Our best chance right now is to threaten China. I think the rhetoric is yes for North Korea, but I think even more towards China. I think President Trump was speaking directly to them in his comments earlier.
I want to make it clear that those two comments that I compared were, neither of them was from the campaign trail. They were in the last 10 days. But yes, I hear what you're saying.
No, but you remember the campaign trail. I mean, President Trump was criticized for being too friendly about Kim Jong-un. That he was, his rhetoric wasn't the right one.
Okay, so that's an excellent point, Katie.
I have no idea how to log on to Facebook Live.
You don't? Well,
she's been trying this whole time.
Are you on? Do you have the app? And if you don't say it out loud. Oh, there, because I want people to know that I'm like going to learn all of your everythings. Oh, there it is. Okay.
No. That's
well, where is it?
I don't know.
And now a Facebook Live tutorial.
Okay, well, I'll do this while we talk.
North Korea.
What I was going to say that was interesting.
Welcome to Tech Talk with Harris and Kennedy. Anyhow,
the criticism that the president got for being friendly, the way that you put it was so true on North Korea and Kim Jong-un.
Right.
Was the same criticism that he got regarding Russia, and the same criticism early on China. when he was saying, you know, hey, look at what your neighbor over there is doing. Hey, I'm just your friend. I'm just letting you know that you might want to take a look at that, rather than clamping down and saying, hey, we need for you to help clean this up.
We're still on the journey, though. We haven't
We
gotten
are,
to the
but isn't that interesting where the journey has taken us? And maybe this president, and now we know from General Mattis that he's been told what was at stake since last summer, which speaks to the issue perhaps of part of the journey, of the niceness. Maybe it was like I don't know, but maybe it looks like now a diplomatic ramp up. It seems a little less muddy now.
But also, Kennedy, you can't win, right? We've seen both sides of this. We've seen the president take on a more friendly tone.
Let me put on the tech
and
glasses.
now he's being a lot tougher in his rhetoric. It seems like he's being criticized no matter where he goes, no matter what he says.
The president?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, I think you're right, and I go back to what you were saying at the beginning of the show. There has to be a common ground that Democrats force themselves to take the medicine diplomatically. I'm not talking about militarily, although there seem to be plenty of hawkish Democrats at this point where they help the White House find a solution to that. Because what we need is a diplomatic voice. We need a solid, unified diplomatic voice where this country is saying the same thing. And I think, you know, it starts with China because as the defense secretary was pointing out, it's really scary. Like the ramped up rhetoric speaks to the seriousness of the interaction that we can have that we can't conceive of because we've never seen anything like it. And Harris is right. We never want to see anything like it.
But we're not hearing that, though, Kennedy. I mean, we've heard comments now from Chuck Schumer and Feinstein, and they've been quite critical of that harsher tone.
Yeah. And,
right?
and
so
maybe they need to take
absurd.
a step back and understand it and understand what the president is doing and say, oh, perhaps this is strategy. Perhaps they're doing something now, and Nikki Haley and Rex Tillerson and President Trump are getting together and they're saying, I'm going to say this, you say that, Mr. President, why don't you say that? And they figure it out. And it is chaotic and confusing to North Korea. And maybe that's the point.
Well, and give the White House a little bit of credit. I mean, so far, in the infancy of this administration, they've actually been very successful when it comes to foreign policy, whether it's rolling back ISIS, responding to Assad, getting Russia and China on board with these UN sanctions. Those are major successes that they've had in a very short period of time. Now they're dealing with North Korea, which is a much more complicated, more difficult, challenging issue because there's not a black and white solution. The other thing that we need to realize, too, is there's not a good solution, but there can't be no solution. So we have to choose between one of the not ideal situations because doing nothing is not an option at this point. And one thing that I didn't get to bring up during the show that I think is important is the North Korea situation now, I think, is a preview of what we could see with Iran, because the same people who negotiated the North Korea nuclear deal in the 90s with the Clintons also negotiated the Iran nuclear deal under President Obama, which means some of the same conditions, you know, the same strategies were used to get them to comply. And although we've seen the Trump administration recertify that the Iranians are technically complying with the nuclear agreement, what are they going to do if they decide not to?
How are they going to take advantage of that?
Because North Korea said, yeah, sure, we'll comply with all these conditions that you give us. We're going to comply with this deal. And yet, here we are 20 years later with a serious nuclear crisis on our hands and nowhere to go. So we should learn from this and not let it happen with Iran as well.
Can I ask a question and forgive my ignorance, who is Chubby Lumpkins?
I don't know.
Nancy Graham
that was
says
my nickname in high school.
Chubby Lumpkins had better think twice before he decides to come after the U.S. Obama is not president any longer.
That's Kim Jong-un.
Yeah,
Chubby Lumpkins.
That's his name?
No, but she's making fun.
Nancy K. Graham, you're funny. But does she have a point?
I think
there's
she
a
does.
different sheriff in town, and we know the difference by just looking at Syria. So, you know, the chemical weapons used on children, women, families, citizens in Syria, and President Obama drew a red line and said what he would do and then didn't do it.
Well,
President Trump didn't draw any lines. He just sent 59 Tomahawk missiles.
And China knows, by the way. We've been talking a lot about the pressure on China. China knows. The Chinese president was sitting at dinner with President Trump at Mar-a-Lago when Moab was dropped on Afghanistan. He knew firsthand that it was happening. When it was whispered in his ear that it was done, the Chinese president was sitting there and he knew that there was going to be a response. So he knows it's serious.
I guess there's a big difference between the mother of all bombs and Tomahawk missiles and nuclear
But I'm just saying,
and my fear is I don't think we need to encourage the president to draw a red line, and then when it's crossed,
Katie, they
nuke
always
North
wrap
Korea.
you when you're speaking.
All right.
I don't think we have to nuke them.
Quickly, everybody on the live chat, we thank you for being with us. We had a near record number today. And everybody on Fox, or rather on Facebook, Brandon Collins, thank you so much. Janice Maxey just giving out a couple of shout outs.
Aw, thanks, guys.
Katie, great to see you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for having me.